We're so excited to talk about car seats and flying.
We are, yeah, so many things to talk about.
Yes. So, do you want to introduce yourself first, Leah?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Leah. For those of you who don't know me, you can go ahead and click follow to get some car seat tips and tricks here. I am a child passenger safety technician certified in both the United States and Canada. I also have a STAC certification, which means safe transport for all children. So I can help individuals who have medical or behavioral needs. And I like to say that I'm a friend of the FAA. I work closely with their cabin safety inspector and child restraint system team to provide the most up-to-date and accurate car seat safety information.
That's awesome. I did not know that you were part of the FFA, or oh my gosh, I always say FFA. FAA. That is amazing. We have to talk more about
Yeah,
that.
it's more of like a network that I, go back and forth with them. I'm not an employee of the FAA, but we've got some really close contacts. So there's always a dialogue going on.
That's great. Yeah, so I am Carrie Allen. For those of you who don't know me, go ahead and follow if you are not already as well. I am a mom of three little boys. They're currently 3, 6, and 9. I am a nurse. My background working in the neonatal intensive care unit. And I am actually a professor and I study milk research. And how this all ties in is I am also a huge traveler. I've had the account here on Instagram for a couple of years and have been sharing our traveling tips. And my goal here is to help parents feel confident to travel with kids, especially multiple kids, and especially multiple car seats, because it can be challenging, right, doing things at once, but it doesn't have to
Yeah,
be. So we're here to help with that.
absolutely. I
And
love
also,
it. I love it.
and also a CPST child passenger safety technician as well. So thanks for coming, and yeah.
Yeah, let's go through. We got a lot of questions, so I'm excited to answer them. I think before we get into some of the questions, what we should talk about from a child passenger safety perspective, kind of why all of the sudden it seems like maybe child restraint system use on aircrafts is becoming more and more common, right? So 10
Mhm.
years ago, it wasn't really a big thing. And so I feel like it's trending upwards, which is a great thing, right? Because we want to keep
Mhm.
kids safe on the aircraft. So the first thing I think we should talk about is the aircraft seatbelts on an airplane, right? They have a weight limit to them, or a weight limit before they become effective for safety. So let's talk about
Yeah,
that and why a younger child who might not weigh the appropriate weight should use a child restraint system.
awesome. Um, yeah, so I know your son is little. How old is
Yeah.
he?
So he's just turned 3. He weighs 31 pounds right now.
Yeah. So anyone here that has a toddler, right, of any size weight, so the FAA recommends car seats for children 40 pounds and under. And the reason for that, like Leah's saying, the airplane seatbelt, if you've ever tried to put a toddler in an airplane seatbelt, you are probably struggling more, first of all, to keep them buckled in that
Right.
seat, make them not squirming out. And it really, if you've seen it, you know that it's not a safe way. Like you would never buckle a child like that in a car.
Right,
um,
absolutely. And it's because the FAA has done the dynamic impact testing to determine that 40 pounds is when that aircraft seatbelt can become an effective safety measure. So essentially, when you have a little toddler, like you said, first of all, they're squirmy. They're not going to be sitting still anyway. But if there is a moderate to severe turbulence, they're going to fly right out of that seatbelt.
Mhm.
So that's one thing that I think is hitting social media a little bit more often now when people are realizing, okay, 40 pounds is the magic number. I also think that it's because there's a lot more language about how to safely transport your car seat.
Mhm.
And as a child passenger safety technician, that it's not recommended to counter check or gate check your car seat, especially without protection. So
Mhm.
if you need a car seat at your destination, which you've got kids, that they usually do need a car seat at their destination, especially for US domestic travel, where we don't have reliable public transportation, I'll say, that the safest way is to just use it on the aircraft. So I think that those are two really positive trends that we're seeing become more popular.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the premise of why does anybody want to use a car seat on the aircraft? It's because the aircraft seatbelt doesn't fit and because it's the safest way for an individual to transport their car seat safely.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too, it's in the past year or so, I feel like the amount of severe turbulence that they're reporting has gone up. And I don't know if it's the
Yeah.
reporting or if it's the weather that you're talking about that, but no matter what it is, I feel like, so I've been using car seats with my kids since my oldest was a baby. Used to bring his bucket seat on. So it's been 10, like 9.5 years. And back then everyone would be like, why are you even bringing a car seat in the plane? Like if the plane falls out of the sky, like a car seat does anything. And I think that's a huge misconception, that people think that car seats are for like a catastrophic like plane crash, right?
Right,
But in
right.
reality, like the most common accidents on planes are actually runway, right? Runway, like takeoff and landing.
Yeah.
And that you're going fast. You're going way faster than you would be in a car. And that's where for me, feel most comfortable with having a car seat. Because if you've
Right.
held a baby, lap baby, because I've also done that too in years past, it's hard. Like when you're stopping, you can feel them being pulled out of you. And that's just on a
Right.
normal landing.
Yeah,
So that's just
absolutely. I think it's really fascinating. That's a really great point that you're making. And it's not obviously it's not if the plane is going to crash, right? That's not really what the car seat does. I think the biggest thing that will resonate with caregivers is that it just provides peace of mind for mom and dad who are just sitting. Like, you don't have to fight, you don't have to wrestle with your child who doesn't want to be restrained. They want to be jumping around, going up and down the aisles. It's just easier. And it's like you said, the tarmac, takeoff, taxi, and landing incidences they're the most common. And a 20-pound kid can all of a sudden have 1,500 pounds of force or on them, and so it's impossible for anybody's human bones to keep them contained in those situations. So that's one thing we want to avoid, but really it's just more practical. It's just easier to fly like that. So so those are all really great reasons on why individuals should use their car seat on the aircraft. And let's get into some of the questions I think that we had caregivers ask us on our reel, if you want to get started.
Sure. Did you say you want me to get started?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So one of the first questions that we got when we posted our collab reel last week was, can most car seats that have a base be used without a base too? And do you want me to answer, Leah,
Sure.
or do you want to do that one?
Yeah, go ahead. We'll talk about it.
Okay, so we showed you in that reel. If you have not seen it, go check it out after you're done watching the live. And basically, what we're doing there is we're showing you that infant bucket seats, which most people, you click your base into the car and you just click in and out. And it's super convenient when you're driving around, but for travel, bringing the base with you often is not realistic. Yes, it's easier, but it's can also be really tricky. It's really heavy, it's bulky, and you can absolutely install your infant car seat into a seatbelt install for almost every car seat. There are a few exceptions, and I'm going to read off the list so I did not say this wrong.
Yeah.
There's a few car seats that always must have a base, but for all the other ones, check your manual, but they can have an install with a car seat belt. So the Baby Arc is one that has to always have a base. The Even Flow 360, and I think Leo, you had said this is why it's being investigated, right
Yeah,
now.
so this is part of the reason why it's being investigated by NHTSA right now. So, and I'll get into that in a minute.
And the other one is the Nuna Pipa Light was discontinued, but that one can be installed or cannot be installed without a base. And the Maxi Cozy Coral XP has been recalled, but if you have that one, first of all, note that. But also that's another one that can't be installed without a base.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was recalled because it couldn't be installed without the base. So NHTSA has this language requirement that essentially requires car seats that have a base and a seat component to be able to install the seat component without the base. Okay, so Nuna took the light off the market because of this language issue after they recalled the Maxi Cozy. Now, Even Flow 360 is wrapped up in it because, as you know, you cannot install the seat portion of the Even Flow 360 without the base. So that is a huge factor on the investigation that's ongoing with NHTSA. And then Baby Arc just hit the market. So we're not really sure what's going to happen with that one, but it's huge, it's big, it's bulky, and so you wouldn't want to bring it on an aircraft anyway.
Yeah.
But for most car seats, a caregiver can read their user manual to determine if they can do a baseless installation, and the answer is going to be predominantly yes. And so practice at home before you travel. Like you noted in the reel, practice before you go. Do not get into a situation where you get into a rental car and you're like, oh, I don't even know how to install this. Save yourself the aggravation and practice before you go.
And also, another reason to practice is some people bring their car seats on planes thinking that the flight attendants know how to install, and they do not.
Right.
And if they are giving advice, it likely is wrong. I had a friend who was flying with her car seat, and the flight attendant told her just take the seat belt and put it over the car seat, not through anything. I saw the picture and I was like, oh, can we talk about this? And
Oh,
she realized like they did not give her the right information. So you need
right.
to know how to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always going to be the caregiver's responsibility for proper use on the aircraft. So we want to make sure that caregivers are confident going into that situation. So the next question that we got was, do they let you use rear-facing car seats on planes in the United States? And I'm not sure if this question came from an international traveler, because it's different over there. So in the United States, FAA regulation requires you to use your car seat per your car seat manufacturer's guidelines. So if you have an infant carrier or a rear facing only car seat, you must use those in the rear facing position on the aircraft. So the answer is yes. So if you have a child who, like for the Costco scenario next, for example, if your child doesn't weigh enough to use it in the forward facing position, then yes, you have to use it in rear facing. It is different for international airlines. A lot of international airlines actually prohibit the use of a rear facing only car seat. And I have a reel with all of that information. If people are flying international airlines, they can go check that out. One of the things that I get sometimes is, what happens if it blocks the passenger in front from reclining? I'm not sure if that's a question that you've ever had, but we know that these car seats are large and bulky, and if you're flying on a smaller aircraft, space is limited. So the FAA regulation states very, very clearly, a passenger's comfort does not override another passenger's safety, and that is a hill I want to die on, because people don't understand that. And when caregivers get into the aircraft and the flight attendant, who, as you noted, isn't well versed in car seat safety or child restraint use, the flight attendant might say, hey, your car seat doesn't fit, you have to move seats. When that's not the case. If it can be properly installed, you are permitted to block the recline of the passenger in front. Obviously, those situations sometimes can have heated discussions and discourse. So you always want to like remain calm and polite. Firstly, you can offer the passenger in front, maybe purchase them a beverage, or, but at the end of the day, it's your right to do so. You have to keep your child safe. You have to use your car seat safely. And so if they can't recline, it is what it is. First of all, most domestic airlines, like, you're only going maybe 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. It's not the end of the world if they can't recline. I think it's okay. It's very, very seldom that anyone would be put in this situation, and it's even less likely that it would be a heated conversation. I've had my Costco scenario next block a little bit of the recline, but then the passenger in front will just like push it back a little bit, and it doesn't unsafely adjust the recline of my child's seat, so I kind of just let it go. It braces a little bit, but you just have to deal with each situation as it comes, I think. But I do want caregivers to know that a flight attendant cannot make them move if it's installed correctly and has the FAA requirement. If it's FAA approved, it's installed correctly. So.
And I think along those lines too, Leah, you probably know this as well, but if your car seat does not fit in the seat that you have bought a plane, like a seat for, there are actually protections for you too, that the airline has to try to accommodate you they have to move you to a seat where the seat could fit within the seat like class that you've already purchased your ticket in. So a lot of people don't know that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we don't want caregivers to get into a situation where they're maybe intimidated or stressed,
Mhm.
and the flight attendants, oh, your car seat doesn't fit. Now I have to check it, and
Yeah.
I didn't bring protection to check it. So we want, yeah, to educate caregivers to know that that's the case. They can, and it's FAA requirement regulation that they are accommodated in another seat in the same class of cabin.
Mhm.
But oftentimes, well, we're
Yeah.
not going to get into it
We
because
won't get
there's,
that
yeah,
specific.
we could talk about it all day. So,
Good job.
but yeah, so back to the question, do they let you
Yeah.
use rear facing car seats on the airplane? The answer is yes. You should always use the car seat per your manufacturer guidelines.
Yeah. Um, I I just got a notification on my phone that Instagram is like going to shut off on me in 2 minutes. So can
Okay.
you take the next question? I'm going to go log into Instagram on my computer and change some settings, and hopefully it'll be
Yeah.
okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Totally. As long as I'm not going to disappear, I think we're good. Okay. So I'll go forward to the next. What car seat is the best for plane and rental cars? So this is a question every child passenger safety technician gets pretty regularly. What's the best car seat? And the answer will always, always be the best car seat is one that fits your child's age, weight, and height, your vehicle, and your lifestyle. Choosing a travel car seat sometimes can bring a factor of like unknown into the game because you're traveling, you might not know what rental vehicle you're going to end up with, you might not know what trip you're going on next time. That might change things as well. So you want to factor in a car seat that's known for maybe a simple installation, and one that's known to work and be compatible with multiple types of vehicles. So that, the most common recommendations are always going to be like the Costco Sonera Next, the Costco Finale, the Graco Contender, the Wavy Pico car seat. So those are fairly easy to install and they're compatible with multiple vehicles. So, but again, this is always going to depend on your individual child and your individual situation. So it's not a blanket answer. You can always, message one of us and get some help with that.
Yeah. Awesome. I don't know if I fixed it. So if I
Okay.
get kicked off, I will try to come back on.
Okay. I was like, welcome back. Okay. Perfect.
I think. All right. So the next question was, how often does a car not have a locking seatbelt? And this is a
Yeah.
great question. So here in the United States, there's actually a law, and we've required them in the United States since 1996.
Yeah.
Where you're going to run into the locking issues is with an older car in the U.S. and or when you're traveling. And I have ran into this internationally many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the government required it after vehicle model year 1996, like you said. And so it's not really a concern if you're going to be traveling. When you're traveling abroad, it's always really nice to have one on hand. You should always bring one with you. When I haven't run into a situation where I've traveled and needed one yet, but one important thing to note about locking clips is you can typically get them directly from your car seat manufacturer for free. And two, the ones that are available on Amazon usually are not legitimate unless I think Diono has one
Yeah.
on Amazon
Mhm.
available. But there are a lot of, I don't want to say knockoffs, but locking clips that won't be effective.
Yeah.
And so definitely call your manufacturer first to see if they can just mail you one for free before you travel. So that's a good way to get them
I would even check sometimes the car seats that I bought recently have had a locking clip like
on
in
the
them.
mono. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
So
if you
that's
look,
a really good point.
yeah,
I think up a baby, usually the infant carriers will have them underneath. Check the back of your car seat.
yeah.
That's what we're trying to say. Yeah, check the back of your car seat and underneath your car seat because some car seats do come with locking clips in them. You can also call around your local technicians. Like we have stacks of
Mhm.
them. So if you have gotten your car seat checked by a technician in your neighborhood, just give them a call back and see if they have any available.
And
Yeah,
there's another thing too that seems like it'd be obvious how to use, but they can be a little tricky. So it's definitely something to practice
very
um,
good. Yeah,
beforehand.
absolutely. And I forget who has the video on YouTube. I want to look it up right now. It might be the car seat lady.
I think the car
She
seat
has a
has
really, really
one. Yeah.
informative, Safe in the Seat has a really informative
Hmm.
how-to video on YouTube. So those are always good things. But again, Practice, practice, practice before you
Mm-hmm.
travel.
Yes. It's different like when you're traveling and rushing and trying to
Yeah,
get in something installed, especially when you're like a van or a taxi. So it's better to like
yeah,
figure out those kinks at home. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So the next question is it safe to check a travel car seat at the gate if I plan to have a lap child? Um, there is no way to guarantee that your car seat will arrive safely when you check it. It doesn't matter if you check it at the counter or the gate. There's no guarantee. Uh, it's not going to be the first recommendation from a child passenger safety technician, but we sympathize with caregiver situations, and we understand that it is a reality that caregivers face. So if you need to check your car seat, always do so in either the original box that it came in. And I kind of laugh at that because I know that not a lot of caregivers keep the original box. Some of the older CPSTs swear by it. That's the only way to do it. But now manufacturers are creating travel bags with warranties. So you can purchase, like up a Baby and Nuna, they have travel bags
mm-hmm.
that come with a warranty against replacement if there's any damage. So that's one option. And then the other option is just padding. I think Safe in the Seat says get a big storage bin if you're going to counter check it, big storage bin and put padding in it, and then check it that way. But as long as you're protecting it with padding and whatnot, that's really the best that you can do if you're going to gate check it.
Yeah, and I think another thing too to try if you do have, depending on the size of your car seat, especially if it's an infant seat and your infant doesn't have a seat, some of the infant bucket seats will actually fit above the overhead
Okay.
bin. So if you're
Okay.
able to bring your carry-on in, you could try that. You could ask if you could bring it on.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. And
worth a
I
try.
think the other thing along that line is maybe you want to talk about getting a free seat for the baby.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tell people about that because I feel like everybody loves to hear this.
Yes. So if you have purchased a ticket for yourself, but you have your baby as a lap baby on the ticket, so that means they don't have a seat, that they're going to be sitting with you. And what happens sometimes for airlines, if the seats are not sold out, which is happening less and less, I feel like these days, but if there is an open seat on the plane, if you ask the ticketing agent or the gate agent, often if there's extra room that you would love to have a seat for your baby or you would like more room, like for your family, they will often let you have that seat and make it happen. The best airline for this is Southwest because it's
Yeah.
open seating. They are incredible. Their policy says that they support
Mm-hmm.
that. There are other airlines that are not so great about that. And even if there are seats, they won't accommodate you. But it's always worth an ask because you're not going to get it unless you ask. So
Right.
it's worth a try.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the Southwest is like, I think 9 out of 10 times you're going to get that free seat.
Yes.
It's free, you don't have assigned seating. It's a
Mhm.
lot easier to accommodate. And I think um, also one note on that specific regulation is that the FAA encourages it, but it's not a requirement. So the FAA has pushed airlines to say like, hey, you should offer up a seat for the child if there's any seating available, but it's not required. And American Airlines and United, they're not going to be as easy to work with as
Mhm.
Southwest. So definitely worth asking though, because if you have to carry it to your gate to gate check it anyway, you already have it
Mhm.
with you. So
Yeah.
we have a couple questions on comments, which is
Okay.
cool.
Just
Okay, can we
scan
say this? Yes. The AM safe restraint, so the CARES harness. That's a really great question. So how do you feel about the CARES harness?
Ooh, it's a good question. I feel like it's overly pushed with not enough understanding of what it is and who it best serves, because there are very clear sizing. Like it's not going to work for all children.
Mm-hmm.
It has sizing, and I think a lot of people don't realize that there's like a minimum weight and a maximum weight and that type of thing. So that's kind of my thing of when I see people pushing it, I'm like, this doesn't seem. And plus,
Right,
there's also a lot of knockoffs on Amazon.
that's
So
true.
that one makes me very nervous when people are like, oh, I got this for $30. I'm like, that is not
Am
the
safe CARES
certified
harness.
one. That
Yeah,
is
yeah,
not like the view.
absolutely.
And the reason that matters is because you can't just like make a safety like it could look like a vehicle safety belt, but if
Right.
it's not tested to the standard, it's not going to hold anyone in for what you
Yeah,
want it to actually do. So
absolutely. absolutely. And I think the CARES harness runs for like 89 or around $80. So
Yeah.
there's only one legitimate provider, manufacturer of the CARES harness. So you want to make sure you're getting it from that specific source.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the weight limits, I think it starts at 22 pounds and goes up to 40. But the issue with that weight is that it's actually not effective for the younger kids. Okay. So even though it starts at 22 pounds, it doesn't really fit until you're closer to 40. And so the issue is when you have a device like the CARES harness, if your child is not maintaining the upright position and using it correctly, you will increase their risk for injury. So it needs to be worn correctly to one, be effective, and two, to be safe. So we want to make sure that your child can maintain an upright position throughout the duration of the flight. If they're slouching, and one of the other issues is that it's hugely conducive to submersion. So children will slouch in the seat, and I have video of my own son doing this, slouch in the seat, and then the chest clip rises up and their bum falls underneath. So it's like if there is turbulence, they're just going to slide right underneath. So in reality, it does not work as effectively as a car seat does. And so that's always going to be the first recommendation. And also the practicality of what are you going to do when you get to your destination? If you're going to rely, if you have a rental car or something, you're going to need a car seat anyway. And domestically, it's very difficult to rely on public transportation like subways and stuff. So it's not my first recommendation. And usually I would tell caregivers to avoid it just because I know how difficult and challenging it is to maintain the safe position throughout the duration of a flight. What else do we have here? So as Anne safe, what are your thoughts on the toddler beds with using the seatbelt under their armpits for sleeping? That's an easy answer. The seatbelt's just not going to be effective. If you're not using it correctly, it cannot do its job. So that's not a safe option. As someone who lives in a city and doesn't have a car, how do you recommend practicing installs? Oh, you just got a Wavy Pico. Good for you. I hope that you're going to love it as much as I do. Yes, we have CPSTs in New York City. There are some of the best in New York City. So I will be sure to connect you with one of my girls over there. You can practice. Okay, so you don't have a car. So practice in an Uber or a taxi if that's possible. Obviously, that would come at a little bit of an expense if you're able to get access to a vehicle. I think that would be a good way to do it. When you're installing the Wavy Pico for your 2-year-old, probably the lower anchors are going to be the best bet. I like the seatbelt installation too, though. And when you're on the aircraft, you have to use the seatbelt installation anyway. So, my recommendation would be to try and access either a taxi or an Uber. We will definitely put you in touch with a CPST in New York City. And then Carrie Ellen, if you have any other tips for that one.
No, I'm thinking of like how to access a car, but I think I don't have any other insights beyond that. So that's great.
Yeah, I think the Wavy Pico is going to be great. So yeah, definitely just practice before you go, and you can send either one of us a direct message, and we'll facilitate making sure you have practice on a vehicle. So that's good. Yay, we answered all the questions, I think. There's so much more to talk about though.
I know.
So let's talk about booster seats really quick. So booster seats. There is no booster seat in the world that is FAA approved. Okay, so when your child gets over 40 pounds, but they still need a booster seat at their destination, you can check it. Most airlines check it for free, and I've been trying to get every airline policy on this going on a list. I haven't completed it yet, but for the most part, you can just check it. And they're small enough where you can put it in the overhead cabin too. So, and that's the reason being is because boosters require a lap and a shoulder belt, and the airplanes don't have shoulder belts. And we talked about getting a pre-seat for baby. How about baby wearing a belly belt loops? Because that's a really big conversation too, at least on my platform. And I'm sure through your travels, maybe you've had experience with those.
I actually have never used the belly belt, which I've been thankful for. And the people, so the reality is the belly belt is not to help the baby.
Right.
And maybe in like minor turbulence to the baby, the belly belt, and without putting it too graphically, is to prevent injury to other passengers. And that's why international airlines use that and require it. And it's not about infant safety.
Mm-hmm.
It's about passenger safety of
Right.
everyone else.
Absolutely. And that's very, very well said. I couldn't have said that better myself. So yeah, you're 100% correct. The belly belt loops, people think that it's like, oh, to hold on to their child, but it's not. It's to prevent your child from like flying about the cabin and hitting someone else's, someone else. And it also, we've seen this in historic crashes where caregiver, like baby has been flung about the cabin and is now in the back, and then mom is trying to fight the emergency exit traffic to go find baby. So this has actually happened in real life, and so it is a concern for emergency exiting as well. And so that, and then we get into the baby wearing. So it kind of seems like, well, of course, baby's nice and snuggled up on me, and baby's sleeping, and I have possession of my baby, so it's a safe option. But as you know, wearing your baby eliminates their survival space, and it becomes a risk for injury, not just to the child, but to you as well. And there are tons of dynamic impact testing data that we have for baby wearing, and every researched aviation industry concludes that baby wearing is not a safe option for transporting infants. So that's why they make you take it off for takeoff, taxi, and landing. So, and a lot of caregivers will get so upset when they get on the aircraft and the flight attendant says, hey, you have to take your baby out of the carrier. And I've come across and I've heard on aircraft, mom is putting up a fight, but baby's sleeping and whatnot. And there's a safety reason, and there's always a reason. There's always a why behind these regulations that the FAA has for aircraft. So that's just one important thing to know.
I think something with that too, like if you are going to be using a baby carrier, having one that can unbuckle quickly, because you can quickly unbuckle and keep a baby sleeping there without having the carrier on. And then it's nice when you're up in the air because it gives you a little bit hands free. But you were saying about like the taxi takeoff and landing is because if you look at the airplane emergency thing, they always show right when you have a lap child, they sit in front of you and they have to be facing the same direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want them facing against you, because if you go forward, we want everyone going the same direction, not opposing.
And but even if the baby's going in the same, even if the baby's going to face, it doesn't, I guess it really doesn't matter in crash testing results if what direction the baby's facing, because there's still a significant severe amount of potential for injury. So what's the safest? Absolutely. So what is the safest way to do a lap seat, or is there a safe way? There is no, I'll just say it, there's no safe way to do a lap infant. There is no safe way. Every aviation industry concludes that there is not an acceptable potential for safe transport for lap infants. But then we get into the risk of turbulence and injury. So that's a whole different conversation. Unfortunately, if you do have a lap infant, you could fly safely and have the best experience of your life. These are decisions that you can make as your individual caregiver. I can't make those decisions for you. And if you do, if you do have a lap infant, my recommendation would be to try to get that free seat, right? Try to get that free seat from the airline to put your baby in their car seat. But yeah, that's what I have to say. I know a lot of people get strongly opinionated about it because it's a very, very strong thing to say. But at the end of the day, this is my career. This is what I do. So I have to align with the facts that the industry provides us.
And another thing you could do, I think a lot of people don't realize this, is sometimes airlines do have child fares, especially international airlines. So you might as well call and ask, right? And it might not be like put on the website, so you might not be able to check like a child fare, or they might not assign it, but it's worth calling and asking. And the other thought just went out of my head. It was related to that, but
there are, I'll jump on that too, because there are, and I did a reel about this. If it is a financial decision that you have chosen to have an in-lap infant, Yes, there are discounted fares for international flights. Usually it's 10% of the ticket. Um, there are bereavement fares, emergency medical fares that are available to caregivers. So if you're flying um, on an emergency situation, call your airline, call multiple airlines and see if they can give you a discounted fare. If you're going on vacation and you're just taking your annual trip to Florida, maybe you have to eat in one night, or maybe you skip, one activity to offset the cost of purchasing that extra ticket. And I that's something that I have a hard time sometimes. um it can get, that's where I cross the professional line and get
Mhm.
personal with it, and I don't want to go there, but definitely, there are ways to cost cut if you want to prioritize getting a ticket for your child. So we'll just leave it at that. I think it's definitely, like, people don't even know about the medical and the bereavement fairs.
Yeah,
That's worth
that's
asking.
brand new. I've never heard
Yeah,
about that. That's pretty cool. Well,
absolutely.
not cool. I mean, they're bad, but it's good they have that for
Yeah.
people.
I mean, and maybe it won't apply to your child's ticket, but it might apply for your ticket. So then
Yeah.
you're saving the money on your ticket.
Yeah.
So we just got another question. My 1.5-year-old hates the car seat, fights it, and it struggles to lap seating is easiest. What are some tips for making the car seat more? First of all, thank you so much for asking questions. I'm so grateful that you guys are here. Um, my question for you is, when was the last time you had your car seat checked by a child passenger safety technician? Because car seats are super comfortable space for children. They should be nice and cozy and warm. And so we want to make sure that, one, the harness is correct, the padding, the infant inserts and padding and everything is correct. We want to make sure there's no adjustments that can be made to the car seat. And so if you've recently had your car seat inspected by a CPST, like within the last 12 weeks, I'll say,
Mhm.
12, 3 months, yeah, I guess. What are some tips for making the car seat more enjoyable?
I think
Hmm.
so. With any age, when I talk about people who are like, my kid doesn't like the car seat, they're never going to stay in it. And I think it's about, 18 months is young, but like beyond, so this is, I'm going to talk like beyond, but like if you're going to be using your car seat on the plane, I think it's about setting expectations beforehand. So when we started using car seats with our kids, like as they've, gotten to the age and they're seeing their older sibling not in a car seat, like we just talk about it. We say, we're bringing your car seat, you're going to use it on the plane. We've had struggles where, the kids want to come out of the car seat, there's things are going on, and we just have to be, there's times where the seatbelt sign is out and I'm like, I'm sorry, we can't get out of the seat right now.
Yeah.
And that's why I always have like some backup plan, especially for like that early toddler age. If they're potty training, like I put my kids in
Mhm.
pull-ups. They don't wear them any other time, but on the plane they do, because I'm
Yeah.
not getting up when the seatbelt sign is off. I am also
Yeah.
an English flyer.
Oh my goodness.
um,
I love it. But that's a really great advice that you just gave. Like, read, watch, learn is something that I
yeah.
live by. You have to set the expectation. And for my son, who's like an aviation geek just like me, he thinks it's the coolest thing because the pilot is also restrained. He can see the illuminated seatbelt sign is lit, so he knows. He sees that sign, and that's a signal for him. I don't even have to say anything. Like, so I'm definitely setting the expectations. But tips for making the car seat more enjoyable, on the aircraft, you just have to bring constant entertainment.
Mhm.
I think a lot
Mhm.
of snacks. And in the vehicle, yeah, just make sure your car seat's installed correctly. That would be the biggest culprit of why children hate the car seat.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, like activities, snacks, like all those things. I don't see going on an airplane as being like, oh, I'm just going to sit here for the next 3 hours, right? And I expect my kid to be great. Like, here's the bag of
Yeah,
toys.
yeah,
I often find the best plane rides are the ones that we are interacting. I come up with silly games. We sing, like, we take this, like the cups, and we create little things out of it. And just constantly having an idea of like stuff that you're going to do. It doesn't need to be huge, but just
right.
like, oh, let's count, like, look at, do you see any planes in the distance, like things like that, just keeping them busy with like little activities. I love a wireless, I listen to books in my ear, so I'm
Yeah,
listening to something and then I can interact, so I'm doing something with them. But my plane rides with kids is
yeah,
active. And I think that with going in with that expectation and being prepared to know that, like, okay, I'm gonna have to like work at this to keep them busy, and then they'll
yeah,
get better at it over time.
right.
Because my older kids are much better, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say 1.5 is
That's tough age.
that's a tough age. But now and that was the worst age for Santino too. But now
Mhm.
that we're into 3, he's just really good. But like you said, I mean, it's an effort. to keep them entertained, but it's a positive experience. And there's so many things, you know, that the kids can learn. There's so much opportunity for education. So like you said, when you are on the tarmac, point out the other aircrafts, point out the baggage claim people or the ground crew, and, you know, talk about the aviation industry with them, because I think that it's really entertaining for them to like be seeing it and living it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Awesome.
right. Yeah, I think there's just so
I
much
know.
to know, but
Yeah.
that's why there's people like child passenger safety technicians who are here to help. So
Yeah.
I think my my goal with my platform is to provide the facts and the education so caregivers can make educated decisions for their family. So that's what I do. I know that sometimes I can come off a little bit too strong, but like I said, this is my career, so I'm just going to say it how it is. And that's what I do. So hopefully, if anybody has other questions, you can all reach out to me or Carrie Ellen, and follow us both on Instagram. And I'm so glad that we did this and we got some really good
I
questions.
know. Thank you everyone for coming. And this will save and we'll upload it to our pages
Okay,
probably
perfect.
by tonight. So hopefully
Awesome.
it'll be there if you have more questions.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I
All
love
right.
it. All right. Well, have a good
All
day.
right. You too.
We'll talk soon.
Bye,
Okay,
everyone.
bye.